Hi everyone, I'm Scott. Welcome back to the Movie Reviewers 100. This is a collaboration channel on YouTube and Facebook where we review films based on a particular theme. We have a new one every week. This week our theme is Diane Lane, an actress who has been gracing silver screens around the world for several decades now, since the 80s. And she's one of the most beautiful women to appear in movies, really. She's 50 years old, she's still totally gorgeous. I wanted to talk about a couple of films that are less well known, or at least less well regarded amongst the films that she's been in, based sort of on who her co-stars were. She's appeared with Matt Dillon in several movies, including Rumblefish and The Outsiders, if I'm not mistaken. She also co-starred with Richard Gere in The Cotton Club by Francis Ford Coppola, and years later in Unfaithful for Adrienne Lyne, and she was actually nominated for Best Actress for that movie. But there are a couple other movies that aren't as well known, or as I said, as well regarded as those movies, that I wanted to sort of focus on, just as a kind of change of pace. The Big Town was a movie that she made in the late 80s with Matt Dillon, and it was basically the movie that brought her to my attention because of the poster. The poster of Matt Dillon, he's got a cigarette dangling out of his mouth, he's got a hand of poker, he's just looking super cool, and there's an image beside him of Diane Lane in this very slinky, low-cut Las Vegas dress, and going, ooh, I'm only 14, this movie looks kind of inappropriate, a little bit too risque for me. I wasn't really into sneaking into R-rated movies in the theater when I was 14 years old. I was too much of a chicken for that. And I looked around for the copy of this movie so I could see it. Couldn't find it anywhere, unfortunately, so I'll have to pursue that by other means. But Diane Lane's other regular co-star, Richard Gere, the two of them, they made another movie after The Cotton Club and Unfaithful called Nights in Rodanthe, which came out in 2008. And this was based on a Nicholas Sparks novel, and it was directed by a first-time feature filmmaker. He'd only done television specials before. He's got another movie coming out soon with Emmy Rossum and Josh Duhamel and Hilary Swank. Don't really know anything about it, but that's like his second film. Nights in Rodanthe, the main character is a woman who's getting ready to divorce her husband. They're separated, actually. They have a couple of kids, a teen daughter and a younger son. At the beginning of the movie, as the father, played by Christopher Meloni from Law & Order SVU, picks up their kids, he says to her, you know, I'm ready to give this another try. I hope you can forgive me. I want to get back together. And she's just like, what? You're asking me this now? She's a little taken aback by it, because she's about to go away for the weekend herself to help a friend of hers, played by Viola Davis, run her bed and breakfast for her while she's off at a business conference. So while she's contemplating that, she's dealing with a bed and breakfast, which takes place basically right on the beach. It's practically built on the beach with the ocean, just this spectacular location. Very, very beautiful place. But she's the only person there, and she only has one guest for the next few days, and that's Richard Gere's character, who plays a doctor. Excuse me, Richard Gere plays a doctor, not his character. His character is an actor. Richard Gere is visiting this part of the country because he performed an operation on a woman a year or two ago that went bad, and she died on the operating table because she had a bad reaction to the anesthesia. The woman's husband basically wrote Richard Gere a letter inviting him to come and speak with him at his home. Apparently the man felt slighted by the fact that Richard Gere didn't personally come to the husband and apologize for the death of his wife. And Richard Gere's character isn't really a guy who's used to apologizing. He's, intent on making sure that everything goes okay, and if it didn't go okay, making sure that it wasn't his fault, that kind of thing. He gets into a big disagreement with his son about this. His son, played by James Franco, was also a doctor, and his son basically stops speaking to him after that incident and decides to go to Ecuador to help run a clinic for people who don't have access to modern medicine. Richard Gere is planning to go and join him there, but he needs to take care of this first. So in the meantime, he's staying at this bed and breakfast all alone with Diane Lane, and the two of them basically form a connection, and they begin a romance. And once they part ways, when Richard Gere flies off to Ecuador to work in this clinic with his son, the two of them, they communicate by letters. That sort of divides the film in half. The first half is them meeting and spending time together at the B&B. The second half, they're separated, but they communicate by letters, and they sort of get to know each other more that way. I wanted to talk about this movie mostly because this movie isn't that good, but Diane Lane is great at it. That's a real test of how good an actor is, whether or not they can really sort of command your attention, even though the story is a little bit too melodramatic and cliche and hokey. And that's certainly the case here. There are a lot of instances in which the music is pushing the emotions a little bit too hard, and is just forcing the issue a little bit too much. And there's even a sequence where they go see a local band play, and the sequence is cut like a music video for no particular reason. It's just the wrong choice, really. But Diane Lane really sells it. Even the scenes that don't work or don't seem all that authentic, she is very authentic in them, and that's her talent as an actress, is to make every moment seem genuine. Especially in the second half of the movie, she's just amazing. She's terrific. And she and Richard Gere, of course, since they've worked together before, they have really good chemistry. They make a really great couple. My favorite moment of the movie is probably as Richard Gere is preparing to leave, to fly away, he gets in his car, as he says goodbye to Diane Lane, and drives just a few feet down the road, and immediately stops the car, gets out, and runs back so he can kiss her one more time. That's a really great romantic gesture. Anyway, so I wouldn't recommend Nights in Rodanthe exactly, but it's a really good example of an actress being great in a film that isn't all that good. And if you need a prime example of this is James Woods in The Specialist. He's so fun in that movie, and the movie is just so terrible, but he's just sort of, it's just one of those things. It's just like, hey, here's why this person is great, because they're great in something that isn't great, There's one other thing I wanted to talk about this week. I was a bit upset by a couple of comments that were left on a video last week. Our theme last week was Rick Mayall, the British comedian who passed away. And we had, this was, a theme that the guys who live in the UK wanted to do, of course, because he's much more well known there than he is here in the US. I think both James and I were really only familiar with Rick Mayall through the movie they did in the early 90s called Drop Dead Fred. I personally didn't have much to say about it other than I saw it and I didn't really like it that much, although some of it was funny. So I ended up not making a video last week. James, however, did. And since he also is admittedly not all that familiar with Rick Mayall's work, other than Drop Dead Fred, he took the opportunity to talk about how movie fans generally feel when an actor or actress or someone well-known in show business passes away and we're not going to get to see any more work from them. Unfortunately, a few people who watched James' video really didn't like it, and they left some negative comments about that, about how he was being disrespectful, and he probably shouldn't have even made a video in the first place. And I totally disagree with that. I didn't think that it was disrespectful at all. I mean, James was very upfront about the fact that he didn't know a lot about Rick Mayall, and his video really wasn't about Rick Mayall at all, but just, the general feeling that moviegoers had, the general bad feelings that moviegoers had when someone that they care about, that they've been watching for years, passes away. And I could say the exact same thing. I mean, there are a few guys in their 70s and 80s right now that I know are probably not going to be alive for a lot longer, at least maybe not making movies a lot longer. Guys like Donald Sutherland, Christopher Walken, Dustin Hoffman, Clint Eastwood. These guys are a lot closer to the end of their lives and careers than they are to the beginning, so we may not end up seeing that much more from them. And when I find out that they're gone, I'm going to be very sad about that, because I really value those guys' work quite a bit. And I could have made a top video on that. I didn't, but I really could have. And if I had, I probably would have gotten the same kind of negative feedback that James did. I didn't really see anything disrespectful about what James was doing. Again, his video, he was very clear about the fact that Rick Mayall wasn't really the subject of the video. And yet people took issue with it anyway. They also took issue with his posture for some reason. You see, I'm wearing a t-shirt laying back on my couch, and I do that sometimes. Sometimes I sit upright. I'm not as concerned with presentation as other people. Otherwise, I would edit my videos and I would add music and titles and stuff like that. But guys like James and myself, we don't really do that all that much. You know, and there are a lot of other people that just basically want to, you know, kick back and speak in sort of a conversational way about whatever it is we're talking about. Well, apparently some people felt that because James was, you know, leaning back on his futon instead of sitting upright and facing the camera directly, that was disrespectful. And I don't get that at all. I suppose he should have been wearing a jacket and tie as well. Would that have been, you know, better? I don't know. We've all got different styles of making videos here. And, you know, people can say things that are disrespectful, but I never get the impression that one's posture actually, you know, when it comes to making videos, I mean, if you're meeting someone in person, that's different, okay? But if you're just expressing an opinion in a video like we are, there really isn't a dress code. And, you know, unless people are saying outright nasty things about the person you're talking about, such as Rick Mayall, I wouldn't necessarily call that disrespectful. It really doesn't make a lot of sense to me that, that people would take such issue with that. I feel bad for James, and so I wanted to speak to the topic and just say, hey, you know, I mean, we've all got different styles here. Some people, you know, just want to basically express an opinion in a casual way. Some people are more formal about their presentation. And because we're different doesn't mean that we're any less respectful than anyone else. And I hope that everyone watching understands that. If you haven't visited our Facebook page and would like to express any opinions on what we're doing, or, you know, suggest new topics and new themes for upcoming weeks, we would appreciate that. But we're guys that are doing this for fun. We're doing it because we like movies and actors and directors. We enjoy it. And, you know, I last think that you can call any of us as disrespectful, even when we're talking about movies that we don't like all that much. So, yeah, please subscribe to us on YouTube if you haven't already. Appreciate it very much. Thanks for watching. See you again real soon.